Is it on?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Hi, everyone. This is my beautiful friend, Lisa, whom I met. Do you have your fun beverage?
I do. I'm drinking a very high vibe latte. But it's called super high vibe latte. And it's quite delicious.
Nice. And I made my chai, which is the typical Indian beverage. So it's a chai tea. And I'm excited that we are here to share our wisdom about shamanism. Cheers. Along with our lovely beverages. So we met during this beautiful journey or program to get trained as shamans. And we thought we'll just talk a little bit about that. It's been quite a journey, as we both know. So let's start about sharing some of that. Would you like to maybe start with telling a little bit about yourself? What's been your journey like? Some of the spiritual aspects and what attracted you to shamanic practice in the first place?
Sure. I would love to share that. So my life opened up to my awareness of being a spiritual being when I was young. I was raised in a faith-based family, and so I never doubted that there was a power greater than myself. And I adhered to that practice quite faithfully until my oldest son, Justin, passed at the age of 15. He had leukemia. And when that happened, the night before his passing, I actually dreamt his death before it happened. And so that opened me up as I went through the deep, deep, deep dark night of the soul and that grief process to my ability to see things in advance, which, and even to see a visual is called clairvoyance. Well, at the time, I didn't speak that kind of language. I didn't understand what was happening. All I know is that it's been 20 years since that experience, and it is that vision and that dream that helped me the most as I went through that dark night of the soul of literally praying to God every night that I would die in my sleep. It was such a powerful pain. And so what attracted me to shamanism and the understanding of is the definition of a shaman, which is someone who sees in the dark, guides others through the dark, in the darkness. And so my relationship with life and death has expanded to, instead of being afraid of death, I embrace it as a fulfillment that we all go through. We're all born at first breath and we all transcend at last breath. And so I'm also a nurse. So I've been a nurse since 1983, so a long, long time. And I've seen life and death firsthand. So I have been able to bridge that gap between, especially in healthcare, people think of physicians and nurses, they think of death very often as failure. But Justin taught me that death is not failure, it is fulfillment. And as I understood this life path that I'm on, the shamanic practice and the shamanic arts are calling me. I believe it's a calling like any other. And I love that there's this indigenous way of being, because shamanism existed before the religions of the world, and the connection to nature and understanding spirit through nature and all the elements that come with the practice of shamanism they really resonate with me. I just love it so much. I feel at home. I feel like I'm home. So how about you? What led you to this path?
Yeah, I think as you were sharing, I realized just how different our journeys have been. But here we are, like converged in this beautiful sacred container of learning shamanism. I think I've been on a spiritual journey for at least 10 years, trying to find myself, my purpose. And maybe about 2 years ago, I realized that my purpose or my soul purpose is to spread healing and be a healer. And so I was, and it's also been a lot of personal healing journey for me, where I tried a lot of healing modalities like theta healing, Ho'oponopono. I did a lot of feminine healing and empowerment work for myself, because culturally, I was coming from India, and I personally felt a little bit suppressed as a female, even though like my parents and my family, everyone is super encouraging, but there were these subtle aspects that were still kind of suppressed and not fully unleashed, fully powerful, fully expressed. So, in all of my healing journey of healing some of my personal trauma, personal abuse, I was trying different modalities, first to heal myself, but then also for me to train as a healer. And then up until 6 months ago, I had not even heard the word shaman, but the shamanic healing path looked like suddenly just really attracted me, that I'm meant to be a shamanic healer and spread healing to the humanity and for the service of Mother Earth through this sacred practice. So that's where I feel like I did not really choose this path, but the path chose me. Honestly, when I looked at this program and the costs, I thought, oh, it's too expensive for me. What's the return on investment? And otherwise, I'm an MBA and a business consultant, so I think about ROI before making any investment. But here I felt like my heart and soul wanted to jump in, but my mind was trying to do the numbers analysis and hold me back. But then that night when I slept, something really magical happened in my dreams. Shamanic music started playing, and my body had like heat flashes, and I suddenly got up in sweat, and really knowing very clearly that my soul is telling me to jump in into this unknown. And I'm so glad that I honored my soul above my mind and the analysis, because it's been the most fulfilling journey since then.
That is so beautiful. I love how you acknowledge the business side of you, the obviously very adept business person who, with an MBA, a fast thinker, data. And what is it you do actually? What is your career?
I've worked as a business consultant for 10 years, making strategies and operational plans. And right now, I'm a senior program manager in Silicon Valley with the leading biotech company. So it's very different from being a shamanic practitioner.
Yeah, it's very different. And I have to say, that's one of the things that I love about the shamanic training that we're taking right now, is that it really allows for that. You know, it used to be, and I used to think of myself this way too, where I was very, you know, you hear about being left brained and right brained. And I've always had strong intuition, and I've always been a dreamer. From the time I was a little child, I can remember dreams even now that I had as a kid that helped me understand my place in the world. And like one, it was, I would remember I would be sleeping at night and I would hear this giant walking down the street, and I had this fear that the giant was going to peek in my window, and then his hand would come in, and just before he got me out of bed, I would wake up. And I had that recurring dream for years as a child. And then at one point, as I got older, I realized it was my own heartbeat. The steps that I was hearing of that giant coming down the street, it was my own heartbeat. And I didn't know that as a kid. I thought, I don't know what that sound is, you know? It was one of those kinds of things. But as an adult, those dreams have served me. I wrote a book, it's called Blood Brothers, a memoir of faith and loss while raising two sons with cancer. And so when I wrote that book, I had to rely on ways to explain to people how I was feeling. And very often, as I sat there contemplating a scene I was creating in the book from my life, I would have a vision of a dream that I had at that time. And so it gave me so that creativity was already there. And I started paying attention to my dream ability. And also, as I mentioned, I dreamt Justin's death before he passed. Well, those things were part of me forever. Like I was born this way, and we all dream. We all dream. Everybody on the planet, you know, we don't remember our dreams. And if somebody isn't getting good, deep REM sleep, they're going to not dream very often. But we all are doing this, you know. And what I love about shamanism is that it encourages you to pay attention to your intuition, to your dreams, to what we call knowings, to your, the message you may even hear audibly and internally audibly, externally audibly, but it gives names and structures for experiences we're having without an overseer or a priest, a pastor. In my experience, I've had both. So it doesn't have somebody in human form saying, well, this is allowed and this isn't, or this might be this, and defining it for you. In the shamanic path, you take the experience and you love it. You're embracing it. You're embracing your gifts, your shamanic gifts. And instead of being afraid of them, you start to trust your intuition, and you trust your knowings, and you trust your dreams. And experiences like you had, waking up in the middle of the night, sweating, aware, this is coming. I'm a response. Your whole body was telling you to say yes.
Yeah.
Right, to this path. And that's what's so, I just love that about the shamanic path.
Yeah, I love what you said about like the priests and pastors and all of these middle layers that sometimes religions put, where they kind of take the power away from you, where sometimes you're made to feel like you're here as a human being, and then there's this middle hierarchy, and then God is up above. But in the shamanic path, you are divine, I'm divine. And now with this training, we've been able to reestablish that connection with our own divine teams, with our guides, with our, I think in the Native American cultures, they call it spirit guides. In Christianity, they call it angels. And in Theosophy, they may call it ascended masters. But it doesn't even matter what name you want to use. In Hinduism, we call it gods and goddesses. So all of those divine energies, they're always there. The divine beings are divine teams, which are customized, trying to help us, trying to remind us, give us these signals, as you said, in our dreams, through our intuition and heightened insights and ideas. Honestly, I feel like my performance at work has gone up because I'm not just going by my bookish knowledge and my structured methodologies anymore, but I feel like I'm just getting all these ideas and insights planted at the right time, and there's more flow and power in doing that, and it's just been magical.
It is, isn't it? It's wonderful that we can, like when we become aligned with what's true for us, everything else flows in. Opportunities, work becomes easier. We're not fighting ourselves. We're not fighting what we already know intuitively. And I just have this memory popping in of when I was a little girl, and our family we were Catholic, and it was time for confession. And the church we went to was very a lot of dark wood, and it was very quiet and echoey, like a lot of cathedrals are. It was a smaller Catholic church, but I remember waiting in line to be next in to go into the confessional booth. And there was a little boy who came out as I was next. And this was my very first time doing confession. I was probably about 5 years old. And my family was very loving. I have such fond memories of going to church together. And so the door opened and the little boy came out. And I remember being nervous. Like I don't want to go in that scary room, And he came out crying. He was crying. And I went into the booth, and there was a puddle on the floor. He literally had wet his pants out of fear. This little 5-year-old, out of fear. And then, so I went in, and I wasn't about to like run out. I went, like I stepped around the puddle, and then I sat there quietly, and the door slided open, the window slided open. And the priest said, the things that he says, and I said, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. And I knew what the words to say, and I knew the training, but what that left me with was this feeling of fear. Like this was scary. The booth was scary. I had to rely on another man, a stranger. First of all, I didn't know that priest. I wanted my dad. I was like, get me out of here. So I think that a lot of in my experience, that may be a very beautiful thing for other people, and it's a wonderful gift for many, many people. So there's no judgment on my part. But for me personally, I don't have to go to a church or a booth or rely on someone else to communicate for me. My guidance system is wired for this. Our guidance systems are wired for this. We're literally learning more and more about quantum physics and how our bodies work and how energy fields mix, and how this happens is starting to match science. And so when I think of our ability to naturally communicate with the divine, whatever name you want to call it, I often say breath of life, because as a mother baby nurse, I have seen first breath. And as a mother, I have seen, and as a nurse, I have seen last breath, both for my son and my parents and many patients that I've been at the bedside. So when I think of how miraculous it is that oxygen molecules float through the air, they come through our nostrils, our mouth, into our trachea, into the lungs, that are perfectly designed to absorb that oxygen molecule attached to a hemoglobin molecule, and the energy of that molecule is what keeps us alive.
Yeah.
That our breath is literally divinely inspired. It's spirit, it's in us, around us all the time. And you just sit and you think about the how that happened. And for me, that's all I need. If I, even first breath, last breath, I remind myself to be thankful for breath every single day and throughout the day. I'm, every now and then, I just go outside, or I stop what I'm doing and I just feel my breath and give thanks for that. And that connection, that divine connection, that's always with me. And I literally feel and have had experiences with my team, with my, what I call my spirit team. And in times when I need direction, I call upon them directly. I don't have to go into a booth and rely on somebody else. And that to me is the greatest spiritual discovery in the mystery and the magic of all of this, is that we can go direct.
Yeah. And I think I really loved that you mentioned science, because obviously based on my training and conditioning as an engineer, as an MBA, I try to look for proof and evidence for everything. But yeah, here in the shamanic path, I feel like they are so much ahead of the science, and science is finally catching up to them. Like whatever the shamans or the practitioners have known here about our bodies, all the layers of energetic bodies, all the wounds that cause an ailment, whether that's something to do with your thoughts or your feelings, something stored in your mental body, astral body, emotional body, like all those subtle layers of the aura, where the wounding can be or where the disease can be stored, how negative thinkings may lead to negative feelings, may lead to an actual physical manifestation of an ailment in the body. And yeah, initially maybe I used to be more grounded in science and looking for proofs, but now I think it's completely turned around. And I've firsthand having experienced like the quantum healings here on the shamanic path. I'm like, when will science catch up to shamanism and some of this ancient wisdom about healing? Because I think both of us, like, we have a similar aligned soul purpose to spread healing. And now that we feel relatively more healed, it's been such a magical experience to be able to spread some of that healing light to others. And you've mentioned like you've been a nurse in the hospitals, being a lot with the wounded and the sick people. And yeah, personally, I've had some really profound magical healing experiences where I was able to help heal others. And there's one particular instance that I want to share today. So in one of my sessions, when I was allowing the divine energies to flow through me and heal this person, he said that Jesus came to him and forgave him for all his sins, and that he, up until that point, he had been unable to forgive himself for the wrongdoings. And after that session, he was just like in tears all over, and he said, "Oh, I can forgive myself because Jesus forgave me, and so I'm fine." And
That's so beautiful.
It was so beautiful. They said their heart chakra has opened and Jesus forgave them. And after that, I kept getting positive updates every 2 or 3 days on my text messages that I ended up attracting new connections. There's been this flow of energy and new opportunities are coming my way now that I'm forgiven and free. I think
Okay,
that was,
he was saying that?
yeah,
Yeah. Oh.
yeah, that was where I feel like finally I'm able to live my soul purpose and spread the healing light.
Ah, I love it. Well, and the other thing I love, and I really embrace that story that you're sharing. As I've had similar experiences. I haven't had Jesus come to anyone directly, but that's, he shows up in many of the spiritual practices I've and ceremonies I've experienced along the shamanic path. Jesus is very present. And so, and he shows up in a surprising way, as are, other um, great masters as well. But and that's what I love too. Like, it's all inclusive, like these experiences are, when we, as our practice teaches us, that we are a hollow bone, that when we step to the bedside, literally I call it the bedside, whether it's virtual or actually in some, live, when I step to that, to the side of that person, I'm offering my energetic field as a hollow bone, so that their guides, their spirit team, the perfect ones in a state of love, come through, and it's all very protected and sealed in love. And so when that happens, they step forward, and I imagine our spirit teams, like, if you're flying over a city and you see lights, if the city was dark and you needed a place to land, you would land where the light is, right? So I see it as, we are the hollow bone that is that airplane. And we're carrying these, inside of this vessel is the beautiful loving spirits that want to help us, and they're with us all the time. We just don't always hear them. And there we are, we're like, whoop, we're turning the light on, for this person that we're standing for. And then they come in and they land, and the spirit team that energy field, and messages come through. And for me, what I've experienced is that those messages are very visual. And when I first started this practice 6 months ago, I had no idea. Like, I had no, it's been 4 months, actually, I think 3, 4 months that we've actually been
6, 7 months, yeah.
Yeah. So what I didn't, I went in eager, awake, like, okay, I'm all in, I want to learn this. And what surprised me is how the dreams, I go back to dreaming again, that because my mind naturally is dream aware. When we started studying the shamanic practice, my dream time got very, very vivid. I keep a dream journal under my pillow, actually, and a pencil, so that if something comes through, I write it down right away, even if it doesn't make sense, because it's, that's how, for me, that's a huge communication source. So and then I didn't realize it, but when I am doing an energy healing, an energy alignment, basically what I'm doing is standing there so that the person can heal themselves. I'm not actually, I'm not healing anyone. I'm bringing the space for them to heal themselves. And what happens is I see images, and those images tell stories. And so the most interesting one that was very moving to me was I was doing an alignment with a woman who had recently, in the last 2 years, she had her partner of 40 years passed away. She'd been gone 2 years, and she was dealing with grief, and I attract people who are grieving because I understand grief, and that is one of my specialties. So, and I'm happy there, happy to serve in this way. So anyway, as I was scanning her energy field and cleaning, because there's a whole process to this, what came through was I saw a face come in very close, and it was a dark skinned Black woman face that was right there. And so I took a mental note of that. I didn't know what that meant. And then another image that I saw was her, the client, uh, as a little girl flying a kite, and very childlike and playful. And she was flying the kite, and all around her legs, this little girl was flying a kite. So I mentioned those images in afterward when we, we have a little conversation after, and she shares what came through for her, and I shared what came through for me. And she said, oh my goodness. So her partner was African American. So she said, oh my gosh, that was her coming in. I know it was her coming in to check you out, to see if you were safe for me and good for me. And so we laughed, like, oh my goodness, she's your guide now, so she
Oh,
can trust
wow.
that. So that image
Beautiful.
really served her and made her laugh. And she was very heavy hearted when we started, and it made her laugh. And it had no meaning to me. I honestly, I
Mhm.
didn't know anything about her circumstance, but it made her laugh. It opened her up. And then the little girl dancing and running with the kite, being very playful. She said, "Oh my gosh, my partner and I were very playful. We didn't have children, and so we called ourselves we were our own children, and we played, and we, and she said, I have a kite in my garage that I've had for years, and I've never flown it. So this to her was a message from her partner to please continue playing, please continue
Oh,
being that child, and
beautiful.
take that kite and go fly it. What are you waiting for? All of that came out of her. She saw that and read that message. I was there as a, yes, you're right, 100%. I feel that with you, and so this practice is so beautiful because uh, I am a bereavement facilitator, and I have training in understanding how to make people feel comfortable, allow for the space for very meaningful and tender conversation. But when I took that skill and added my clairvoyance, it's magic.
Quantum
As you say,
powerful.
it's magic, right?
Yeah.
We like to use the word magic. How do you describe that? I think I just did. Like, that's the magic in what we do in this practice. And it brings so much joy. Joy. Oh, good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think even when you mentioned something about the dreams and the messages contained therein, I feel like our perception of reality, the three-dimensional reality, is often very limited. But what this shamanic path does is that it really takes off that veil of illusion of just this being real, my goals, my family, my money, but really making the other dimensions, other realms, the divine themes as real to you as it can be. So I feel like it helps us pierce through that veil of illusion. And we will be making another video on that topic and posting the link somewhere below in the description box. You can also check that out.
Nice. Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about that presentation you're putting together, because it's really yours. You are doing, you did that.
Yeah, so I think that was again a brainchild or maybe a soul child of the shamanic path. That the more and more that I made journey, that I progressed on this journey, I realized just how much of it has been an illusion, or at least a very limited view of reality. I wouldn't call like 3D as a complete illusion, but it's just a very limited view compared to all that there is, all the dream realms, the angelical realms, the divine themes out there, different dimensions. And as I started walking this path, I realized like I opened up to the possibilities of other things being real too, which we don't always see with our these eyes, but which you see with your clairvoyance and things like that. And that's what inspired me to kind of put some wisdom around that topic and compare both the perspectives, the 3D perspective, as well as a more multidimensional perspective, so that we as human beings can really expand our perspectives and continue to grow and be more powerful.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen the slides that you have, put together, and it's so beautiful because you have that beautiful into, that logical mind that can put this all into space, into a visual, and then teach us from in a intuitive way. So I love how you're bringing your logical mind in right alongside and along with your intuitive mind, and that's what's happening in the world right now. You know, when you talked about the well, you could look at that as a miracle when you can change, when you can bring those two together. If the definition of a miracle is a change in perception, and by understanding what you're teaching next is a miracle. It is causing a change in perception of we think this way in a linear way. If once you're educated and you have some intuitive experiences, then your whole perception changes, and that's what I call an invisible miracle. And that's what
Beautiful.
I teach on and share to not only healthcare professionals as a speaker, but also to women's groups, spiritual communities. And through my life story, I weave in these understandings that I now have. You know, I wrote my book in 2011, so that was 10 years ago. And now I have all these insights and new discoveries. And so I love sharing my story with the new insights and wisdom to bring people back to a state of joy. You know, I really believe that we've had a crazy wild year and we're still coming out of it. But it's been my experience is that when you're in a dark space and when you're going through difficult times, my biggest fear when my son died was that I would never experience joy again, that I would live a joyless existence. So for me, all of this practice and understanding is for a return to joy. And I really believe we are coming back to joy. And that
Yeah.
for us, the shamanic path is the way to get to reveal that in our lives.
Yeah, and I love how you mentioned like we being able to bring, science with spirituality or 3D with the multidimensional perspective, because I feel like now is the time for integration. That seems to be the theme of the planet, of the humanity right now, where people have had that year of being with themselves, which was confronting for a lot of us, but also something that was necessary for us to open up to some of the deeper, higher perspectives, more wiser perspectives, not just the 3D. And I feel now in 2021 is the perfect opportunity for all of us to integrate all of these perspectives, marry science with spirituality, marry 3D with the multidimensional.
Yep.
It's all
And
real. And
business and leadership with spirituality and intuition, it's all happening, and it's happening for our greater good,
yeah,
our bigger expansion, so that we can be more loving and free to love each other without so much fear around us. So I think this has been an amazing, amazing conversation. And I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful that you invited me to this conversation, and that we are both loving ourselves in this practice, in this, oh my gosh, in this being human. And I'm just going to say a little prayer right now because it's coming out.
yeah,
That's okay.
yes.
Oh, breath of life, we are so, so grateful for you, all that you inspired literally at first breath for each one of us. I see those babies being born and squeezed, and how difficult it is to get all the fluid out of our lungs at first breath, and all the changes that happen in the physical world for us to be able to breathe, and how so many people in this last year had lost the ability to breathe. I send blessings and love to those who are in mourning over the loss of a loved one, for those who are in mourning over the stress and challenges they faced, especially among hospital workers. I pray a blessing over each and every person who still has breath, that we can continue to grow as inspired beings, and understand that we are of spirit. We are inspired, inspiration. We are in spirit. That these, as I mentioned before, those oxygen molecules, they run through our body, bringing energy. That energy is us. It is the divine. It is spirit. It is great spirit in us, as us, all the time. We are grateful for this conversation. I give great gratitude to Rashi for her adventurous spirit and this ability to capture this conversation. And I pray a blessing on any of those who see this video, that you will be centered, aligned with your shamanic self, with your spirit self, with your inspired being in a way that uplifts you and blesses you for weeks and days and weeks and months and years to come. It is with great gratitude that we share this time, and this time comes to a close. And in this, our minds are one. Aho.
Aho. Let us continue to spread love, light, and healing with that beautiful prayer. Healing and helping all humanity and also our Mother Earth, which gives us so much, the unconditional, abundant love and resources for us to thrive, not just survive. So also sending some love, gratitude, and respect to Mama Gaia.
Aho, yes. Keeping us grounded always. Yes, thank you. Oh, what a beautiful conversation this has been. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Let us continue the series.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And more nice hot drinks together.
Yes. Cheers.
In the future. Thank you, Rashi.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.